In the Mediterranean basin, a melting pot of ancient and modern civilizations, more than 500 million people today face an omnipresent threat: climate change. This region, the most vulnerable on the European continent, is at a climatic crossroads that demands immediate action, from mitigation to adaptation, and resilience strategies and policies.
The Mediterranean region is what we call the canary in the mine for climate change. It's a region that is, the temperature is increasing 20% faster than the temperature, the average temperature in the world. On top of that, most of the population in the Mediterranean region lives in cities, which makes this area a very important area in terms of adaptation and resilience, not only in terms of mitigation.
Cities are on the front lines of the climate crisis, and climate change now is hitting us with more intense impacts than ever before. Those impacts manifest themselves in a number of different ways, but the most intense, in particular here in the Mediterranean, are in terms of increasing heat and the increasing intensity of storms, which leads to floods.
So the consequences are here. We also need to adapt all our agriculture, for instance, and we need to adapt the cities for citizens to be able to live in them, not only now, also in the future.
Urban resilience is the capacity of communities and institutions within a city to survive, adapt, and thrive, regardless of the chronic stresses and acute shocks they experience, while enhancing adaptation to climate change means taking action to adjust to its present and future impacts.
There is a difference between mitigation finance and adaptation finance. In mitigation, we often see investment by private sector actors. In adaptation, it heavily relies on the resource of mobilization by the public sector. And we know that in climate adaptation finance, national governments and development finance institutions are the two major sources of public sector funding. So what city governments, especially in the Global South, need is to advocate both these two types of institutions.
Not only by having mitigation policies, we are going to get out of this crisis. We also need to design and implement measures and policies directed to adapt, and in this context, to adapt cities, to make them more resilient for what is coming and what we are already suffering.
There are a lot of climate solutions that don't have to cost a lot of money. When we look at the space around us, we see nature. Nature-based solutions are one of the most cost-effective ways that we can deal with the climate crisis, bringing nature back into cities and looking for smart ways to have green, gray infrastructure next to each other can really maximize the use of resources to protect communities.
We need more climate refuges here in cities. We need trees, we need parks, we need more green zones where people can go when there is a heat wave, for instance, and also to avoid this effect of a heat island that is produced in cities when there's a heat wave.
Cities, often seen as the main contributors to global warming, are now at the center of the search for solutions and are centers of innovation, with the potential to offer a multitude of solutions and strategies to the challenges it presents. Many innovative cities are creating and developing concrete initiatives to promote adaptation and climate resilience strategies. Understanding it is not a question of just mitigating the effects of climate change anymore, but also of actively adapting to a new climate reality.
it is not only a matter of upgrading our current infrastructures. It's also a matter of having all the actors, all the stakeholders in the territory sitting down together systematically. Because there is a very important point in knowledge sharing that we need to take into account.
The participation in resilience networks is very important for us because we can share every experience about chief resilience officers or experts in every area of the city. We put together our thinking about what is happening in our cities, what are the challenges about climate change, and what are the strategies and actions that we are doing in every city.
The capacities that you need to respond to these impacts, which are increasing, are really threefold. First and foremost, you need the right information. You need the information about the vulnerability of the place, of your city, so that you can make a plan. The second and most important thing you can have is that plan. You have to be prepared. So cities need the capacity to take that information and plan it. That's about people, having the right people with the right skills. And finally, and critically, you have to have the right resources to respond, both technically and financially.
Some cities in the Mediterranean are innovating in adaptation measures, increasing their resilience capacity and adaptation processes to respond and address the climate emergency. Genova stands at the forefront of climate adaptation in the Mediterranean, demonstrating how cities can confront the climate emergency with innovative and collaborative strategies. A key focus has been on implementing nature-based solutions, such as infiltration basins, to mitigate flooding, combat drought, reduce urban heat islands, and improve air and water quality while fostering biodiversity. Through its participation in the ReMed project, Genova is developing advanced tools and frameworks to assess climate risks and implement targeted adaptation measures, serving as a model for other Mediterranean cities. Thessaloniki is charting a bold path toward climate adaptation and resilience, embracing innovative strategies to safeguard its future in the face of climate challenges. Central to its efforts is the Thessaloniki 2030 Resilience Strategy, a comprehensive plan designed to address risks such as flooding, heat waves, and urban vulnerabilities, while fostering sustainable urban development. Istanbul, a city straddling two continents, is rising to the challenge of climate change and natural disasters with a bold and forward-thinking approach. The city has launched a transformative plan to reinforce 50,000 residential buildings by 2050, addressing the seismic risks faced by over 200,000 structures. A 10-point disaster resilience plan has been introduced, aiming to reduce risks and strengthen the city's preparedness for both natural disasters and climate-related emergencies. Alexandria, a city steeped in history, is confronting the challenges of climate change with innovative measures to protect its future. To combat its climate risks, Alexandria has launched coastal protection projects, constructing sea walls, and reinforcing vulnerable areas to shield its shores and safeguard its communities. The city is also addressing urban flooding by upgrading its drainage systems, ensuring they can handle the increasingly intense and unpredictable rainfall brought on by climate change. Barcelona has established itself as a global leader in innovative adaptation and resilience strategies, tackling climate challenges through green infrastructure, sustainable water management, and energy-efficient urban planning. The city has introduced its pioneering climate shelter initiative, transforming schools and public buildings into safe havens during heat waves, by integrating cooling solutions, improved insulation, and accessible shaded areas.
All the climate shelters, so the network is very important for families and for the people, for elderly people, and childhood, and they can go there to spend some hours there, reading a book in a library, for example. They can mix social activity with being in a colder place.
We lost nature inside cities, and that's a big problem, right? Because when we think about adaptation, we really need to think about having more nature inside the cities for a lot of different reasons. Barcelona is a city that has green but also has blue, so we really need to think about all the possibilities where biodiversity can thrive and help us, and where we can implement nature-based solutions for climate change in the context of every city.
In the heart of the Mediterranean, a region defined by its rich history and cultural diversity, a new chapter is being written. A chapter that speaks of survival, innovation, and hope in the face of climate change. By embracing adaptation and resilience, we can build a sustainable future together, inspiring each of us to take action in both our local neighborhoods and on a global scale. The challenge is great, but so is our collective power to shape a better world.
First of all, is to understand that mitigation and adaptations are two sides of the same coin. And understanding that adaptation is an investment. The cost of inaction is unbearable. So we need to adapt as much as possible now to present and future challenges.
I don't think that the responsibility should be put on citizens. I think that this is a shared responsibility, and citizens exclusively are not going to revert what is happening. And I think that in that sense, my ask is the most important thing that a citizen can do is to be informed and to vote. And voting is the superpower that we citizens have in order to make us count for what we think that is important. So, and you need to be informed to know what's important.
In terms of addressing future challenges is really to start now and to start with your own awareness. Understand your local situation, understand those shocks and stresses that your community will face, not just in one area, but look holistically at what your city will face and then get involved. I think because the challenges we face today are so complex, there are also so many skills that are needed to come together to solve them. So everyone really has a role to play.